Antarctica, the Great White Desert. It's cold, it's desolate, it's boring, but above all, it's top secret. That is, if this footage is to be believed. This might look like your average nature documentary, but these sailors aren't just discovering penguins. They're uncovering a Nazi base. Well, they thought they were. You see, what we're watching is actually part of Operation Highjump, the largest U.S. military operation ever undertaken in Antarctica, and one that had very little to do with penguins and everything to do with secrets. So what exactly were they trying to hide down there? Let's find out. The year is 1946. World War II has ended just a year prior, and many are wondering what the United States will do now that the threat of fascism has been quelled. Some Americans wanted to focus on Asia, where tensions were growing with the Soviet Union. Others wanted to focus on Europe, where the U.S. could play world leader and rebuild the continent after the devastation of war. But these Americans did not take into account the opinions of the man who would become our nation's 33rd president, Harry S. Truman. For better or for worse, the decisions he made during his tenure would have an impact that stretched far beyond the borders of the good old USA. And I mean much, much farther. While tensions were rising around the globe, Truman decided that the best place to establish peace was Antarctica. Yes, Antarctica. At the time, the icy continent was largely unexplored. Though it had been discovered over 100 years earlier by European explorers and had served as the backdrop for several scientific expeditions, no country really laid claim to it. But once word got out that this remote frozen wasteland might hold valuable resources like coal, oil, minerals, and yes, even gold, every major power began making plans for just how they would go about pillaging said resources. With everyone from France to Australia to Japan staking claims, Truman figured that the United States should probably get in on the action too. And so in 1946, he authorized the establishment of a naval base at the southernmost tip of South America. There, the U.S. would join forces with Chile and Argentina to make further exploration of Antarctica possible. But while establishing a naval presence in Antarctica might sound like a chill idea for some frosty relations, it was really all about keeping tabs on a very specific group of people. Enter Operation Highjump. Led by Rear Admiral Richard E.B. Pinchon, the mission's stated purpose was to conduct scientific research in Antarctica. However, its true purpose was to keep watch on escaped Nazis. You see, when the war in Europe came to an end, thousands of Germans fled to Antarctica, which at the time was basically a lawless country. What better place to hide than somewhere no one else wanted to go? The U.S. had reason to believe that German Admiral Karl Donitz and several other high-ranking officials were hiding in Antarctica, though, and they weren't taking any chances, so they sent in the Navy to find them. In total, Operation Highjump included nearly 5,000 personnel across 13 locations. Naval bases were established at Palmer Station, Little America, the South Pole, and Cape Hallett. Additionally, 5 seaplane bases were created. 143 planes were deployed along with 120 vehicles, and the Navy even went so far as to lay the groundwork for what would eventually become the first Antarctic Highway. While none of those pesky Nazis were found, the team did discover something else, something that could change the world forever. Enter the UFO. Okay, maybe not that kind of UFO, sadly, but these sailors did come face to face with something truly bizarre, and they didn't know what to make of it. Take, for example, this strange object that was photographed sitting on the ice. Given the scale of the men standing next to it, it looks massive. When asked to describe it, one sailor said it was shaped like a long cigar, only wider and smoother. But the mystery doesn't end there. Here we can see another photo taken by one of the sailors, and it shows something even stranger. A hole in the ice that seems to stretch on forever. To make matters even weirder, this image was supposedly taken by an aerial crew that also saw a disc-shaped object that appeared to be hovering over the water. Some conspiracy theorists will tell you that this is clear evidence of extraterrestrial life visiting our world. but others will point to more mundane explanations for these mysterious sightings. After all, things don't always appear as they seem in Antarctica, where the sun shines brightly even as temperatures plummet to dangerous lows, and where shadows can distort familiar objects, making them look alien. Others still speculate that the U.S. government knew full well that UFOs existed, and that it was this knowledge that inspired the creation of Operation Highjump. According to this theory, the Navy was ordered to keep a lookout for extraterrestrial visitors, but they never saw any during their time in Antarctica. But that doesn't mean the aliens didn't see them. Others who doubt that there were ever any UFOs involved point to the fact that the Navy discovered something else in Antarctica, something that may be responsible for the strange objects seen in photos. A type of fungus that grows in polar climates and can easily be mistaken for a metallic disc. What's more, this fungus can cause hallucinogenic effects in humans, potentially explaining the sailors' claims that they saw massive holes in the ice and floating discs. But not all reports of strange happenings in Antarctica have such easy explanations. Take the story of Gerald Hurd. In December of 1960, Hurd was working as a surveyor on a British trans-Antarctic expedition when he noticed something peculiar. He was measuring the coastline of the Rockefeller Mountains when he spotted a structure that shouldn't have been there. He described it as a gigantic dome, perfectly smooth and about 150 feet high. After looking for a logical explanation, Hurd concluded that the structure must have been left behind by a glacier, but that meant it must have been created within the last 150 years. Yet the area in question was estimated to be between 60 and 80 million years old. Something wasn't adding up. When he returned to the site the following summer, the dome was gone, seemingly destroyed by a storm. To this day, no one has been able to explain what this strange object was, but it wasn't the only thing to catch Hurd's eye. On another occasion, he and his companions were flying back from a mission when they spotted a large shape on the ice below. It looked like a huge black disc with a bright red border. As they approached, they saw that the shape seemed to be moving, though it wasn't traveling in any particular direction. It was simply drifting along with the wind. To make the sighting even stranger, another aircraft that happened upon the same object later reported that it had disappeared. While these sightings are intriguing, it's important to remember that Hurd was a surveyor, not a scientist. He lacked the expertise needed to properly identify what he was seeing and verify his findings. Because of this, some believe he may have simply misidentified naturally occurring geological features. And unfortunately, there's no way to prove that what he saw was anything more than rocks and wind. One report, however, does stand out among the rest. Ernest K. Gann was a pilot who flew transport planes for Pan Am when he wasn't writing adventure novels. In 1951, he was hired by the CIA to fly a surveillance mission over Antarctica aboard his single-engine Cessna 170. While flying high above the icy landscape, Gans spotted a large, disc-shaped object sitting on the ice. He described it as shiny and silver, about the size of a football field. But the strangest part was that the object appeared to be moving on its own power, not unlike a submarine moving through the water. Gans tried to get closer, but bad weather forced him to turn back, and what he saw that day would haunt him for the rest of his life. He wrote, "I had seen things in the sky which I couldn't identify. I had seen things on the ground which I couldn't identify. And I had heard noises which I couldn't identify. And I had been close enough to one of them to know that it wasn't man-made. It was intelligently designed." What exactly were these pilots and surveyors seeing all those years ago? Were they witnesses to an alien world hidden beneath the ice? Did they uncover a top-secret facility belonging to the shadowy government organization known as Majestic 12? Or did they simply let their imaginations run wild in a place where the line between reality and fantasy is often blurred? We may never know for sure. But one thing is certain. If there's one place on Earth where anything is possible, it's Antarctica. Now check out what really happened to Amelia Earhart, or click this other video instead.